Okay, Jon Gums here with Dakota Grappler with two great wrestling fans. South Dakota treat tonight. We're going to talk a little bit of the Class A brackets, maybe a little bit about the B duels and the A duels also. But guess what, guys? I'm going to leave that to tomorrow night. We'll have a Class B breakdown of their brackets tomorrow night. So if you're watching tonight to watch the Class B, I apologize. But guess what? We will have a good show tomorrow night for that. I want to introduce my two special guest tonight, Tom, who's been with me several times, and Rob here for the first time. We're getting two different sides of the state, or actually the north and the south, a little bit, not so much east-west, even though you could call it east-west, the river-wise. But we're going to talk a lot of South Dakota wrestling. If you guys have questions, I do have a comment section over here. Some people are watching on Facebook, and some people are watching over on YouTube. Most people catch it on Facebook. We've had anywhere from 500 to 1,000 to even some of my videos the last few have several thousand views on Facebook. If you missed this tonight and just hear about it, you can go over to YouTube. There's over 100 videos now out there for Dakota Grappler. I did cover the Class A and Class B North Dakota state tournament this last weekend. Several good things. In fact, I mentioned earlier I got a little state tournament hangover right now, and not from adult beverages, just from being all the good matches. How can you say it? Mental overload, because there were so many great matches in North Dakota, and I expect the same thing in South Dakota. Now, here's one big thing, Tom. I'm going to have you guys introduce yourself. I'm not going to be able to make the whole state tournament, so I'm a little depressed on that, but I plan on being down in Sioux Falls as soon as I can on Friday, and I will catch up with some people, and we're going to fill me in on everything that took care of itself on Thursday, even though, guess what? Thursday teaching for me, I'll probably be watching a lot of the matches. So if my administrator's watching, I'm sorry. but I tell you what, guys, Tom, introduce yourself real quick, and then I'll have Rob introduce
Sure, I'm Tom Schoenhard. I've been on the show a few times, and it's been great to be on and contribute the best I can. Talk wrestling. I live out in Rapid City, and I've been involved in our youth club out here for a number of years, close to 8 or 9, and my sons are both wrestling, one at the high school level and one at the middle school level. So, yep.
Very good. And Tom is widely knowledgeable, and what's interesting about him that I love the most is he likes his Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes, I do.
Well, and then I noticed Rob, his email has to do with the Jets. So I'm pretty sure we got a battle here. Okay, Rob, introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, it won't be much of a battle against the Kansas City Chiefs right now if the Jets are. No, I'm up in Aberdeen. I'm the president of the youth wrestling club here. I have 4 boys. They've all wrestled. 3 of them have since graduated. My son Jacob graduated last year. A very good year. My other son Josh wrestled for 3 years at Northern State here in town. I do have a 7th grader wrestling in our 7th grade class. We're looking forward to seeing those kids in the high school. Got a lot of wrestlers, and they're all pretty dang good. So we're all hopeful in a few years how Aberdeen will be representing.
I do want to give a shout out to your club too, Rob, for bringing 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to our state middle school tournament. You had a nice showing there, and that's a great tournament. And we're trying to figure out a way to grow it, not get too big too fast, but it's been a great ride the last 4 years.
Right. Yeah, we definitely support that. And our high school coach, Donnie Bowden, our middle school coach, Mike Swenson, and myself, we do everything we can to promote that middle school tournament and get the kids into it. And yeah, we end up with 4 state champs and a runner-up out of that, which is pretty impressive. We're pretty about that. So a lot of good wrestling, a lot of kids placed. I think we had 13 placed, so it was a good showing for us.
Good.
Well, Rob, I was really impressed on how bold your club was by putting up big, how could you say, you have street signs that said Aberdeen Wrestling Club and stuff. You know, the big billboards, yep, out there. And I was going, oh, man, I don't know why I never thought of that. That was great advertising. And
we said the same thing. Yep, we need them on I-90.
Yeah, well, we want to do everything we can to promote the sport and keep kids in the community excited for wrestling. We battle, like everyone battles basketball. We've also got a really good hockey program in town. So for us, we got to do everything we can to get kids in the sport and keep them in. So those things like that, they make a difference. And it's amazing how many times someone throughout the state has talked to me about that billboard. That we're going to continue to do as long as we can.
Well, that is awesome. And then I happen to know your hockey coach down there, Langer, actually for your pro team and stuff. I know the head coach very well. Played softball with him. It's a small world.
And they've got the Wings won whatever the title is called. They won last year, and they're exciting. They're fun. It's a fun thing to go to and fun thing to watch. Well, however, I do think these kids should be wrestling. So
some of the first times I remember your boys going through the club, and I remember your boys actually, what's interesting is when Northern was losing their program, your name was brought up several times, and all the people in Aberdeen trying to fight to keep their college program was really big. And I appreciate everything that the people in Aberdeen did to keep that program.
It was actually really impressive how everyone came together, and not just in Aberdeen and the community, but the state and other wrestling programs throughout the country and people. And it was a lot of fun to be involved in. And, and now Northern's program is thriving, and they're good at recruiting. They got more scholarship money, and they're competitive in the NSIC now. So I know if you talk to Rocky, the head coach there, he's not happy where they're at yet, but they're on their way. They're making their mark. So
no, we had Rocky on here, and his cell phone connection was not so great that night, and he was actually kind of depressed because everybody else was sounding really good. But he's been really good recruiting. In fact, I listened to some of their duels. In fact, listen to your son.
That's right.
Do some of the broadcasting with. I got Paxton Muse. I actually. The other guy that's broadcast with him, I actually asked him, invited him to help me in North Dakota for the state tournament. And he was just giddy as a little kid just to do it. And I tell you what, he's good, just analytical, for being young. He's just going to graduate this spring, and you got to think he just graduated high school in 2006. And I just love that there's another generation of wrestling appreciation people. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And Paxton and Josh, they do a good job. They know their technique and know what's about to do and know where to put the hands and all that stuff. So it's good to listen to them. I learn a little, but don't necessarily want to let them know that. But I do learn a little when I watch.
Okay, guys. Well, I do appreciate you guys. Now we're going to get right into the brackets. Going to talk a little bit. Now we're going to look at the Class A brackets. I'm going to put them up on the screen for the people to see, so you don't have to look at our faces so much. So as I share the screen here, let's go to this. Pretty simple. We pop down there pretty small. And those that have a big screen, computer screen, much easier to see the brackets that way. If you got a small phone, I do apologize. Can't see it so well. But you can get on there. And I know Tom's got his own boy at 106 because I'm going to make him kind of a silent partner for this one. And so we look at this. And right away, the one thing I noticed, and since, Tom, I know you're on the show, we're not going to mention, but your son did get the 3 seed. And you had talked about in another show that the number 1 seed, the Brandon Valley kid, probably is the toughest kid in the state that you wanted to see. And so you don't have to answer, but let's get Rob. What do you think by looking, if you can see this 106-pound weight class, shaking out the top 4 for sure?
Well, I haven't seen the Brandon Valley kid wrestle. Quincy Hulverson, the tier kid, was the runner-up last year to Brendan Southrank from Aberdeen. And I know he's pretty skilled, but look, what the research I've done, I can see Jack Schoenhard and Quincy's match being really tight. I think it's going to be hard to knock off Trayson from Brandon Valley.
Right.
Well, that being said, that Moses Gross, the 7th grade from Huron, is very explosive.
Well,
and I've watched him throughout his youth days too, and he can get you too. He's very quick on his feet and with some really good double legs. So I think the semifinals at 106 are actually going to be very exciting to watch. And honestly, whoever comes into those finals has a shot. And I don't think I don't think that Brandon Valley, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, if it's or what. I don't think he's going to just walk away with it.
Can you help us with that, Tom?
It's Trayson Omi. Yeah.
Omi.
And we wrestled Quincy, down in Yankton, and he's a tough kid. He got us a couple times last year. Judson and that Judson, Gross match, the quarters, that's a tough matchup. Those kids have wrestled 3 or 4 times. We got past Gross at the invite, but we don't really see Huron most of the year. So, and we went 1-1 with Trayson this year. I think it's wide open. I think there's some great kids in there, and it'll be exciting to see kind of how it shakes out. But I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited for this one. I got to watch Gross wrestle also in the Aberdeen tournament, in that bracket, and he won it. He ended up walking through it pretty easy, but he is big time defensive wrestler. He's got a front head and goes into a head in the hole series. Basically bides his time, as patient as I've ever seen pretty much a 7th grader wrestle. And then as soon as there was an opening, after a bad shot, he shot and had a pretty good double. I did notice that.
I did. I believe Judson beat Gross in the region finals.
Yep,
Yes,
he did. Yep.
but I'm assuming Gross must have a couple more wins over him. I know it was a good close match. So yeah,
I think Gross is 2-1 with him, and I think Judson got that 5-3, so it would look like a tight match.
Well, I was looking at the Spearfish Junior down there. How many times did you face him?
We wrestled him in the duel. We wrestled him up in Belfouche, and we wrestled him last year. So we've wrestled him a few times this year.
I was just amazed at the 56 matches on the year.
Yeah, they travel, and I think they get out into Wyoming a little bit too, and so yeah, he's got quite a few matches. My son had a lot of matches last year too, but it was because we're always on the left and not on the right. You can add one for every tournament or two. So sometimes those match count numbers mean that they probably got third or fourth a lot. You know what I mean? Which is still good, but you just add 8 or 9 matches for the tournaments, throughout the year.
Okay. Well, sounds good. Any other comments about the 106? We can move right on to 13. Anything?
Not for me. No.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Let's move on to 113. Let me move this up a little bit, see how it looks. Scroll the screen up. Yeah, it's amazing. I tell you what, as the year goes, how much talent the state of South Dakota is bringing. I'm just amazed at the records. I got to see a lot of these guys wrestle, and teams are doing a better job. I kind of do a little bit of Facebook stalking, and some of these guys do a good job promoting their team, which is amazing. Good pictures, good results. I'm happy to see that out there. Well,
absolutely.
Can you
I think if we don't do that, it's hard to get the coverage. And I think I go back to what we talked about on an earlier show that Bono said. You just got to give it to them. You got to force feed it to them. What they do with it will be up to them. But I think it's on us to get it out there. And I think, we try to do our best to do that.
Okay. Well, I thought I had 113 on my screen. I see 113, but it hasn't come up on the main thing here. Let's do that again. So we might get our big faces for a couple seconds. Okay, so let's reshare the screen to 113. For some reason on the PDF, when I changed channels or changed things, print charts, it didn't. Let's see what comes up now. Okay, keep watching for a second.
They're at 20. There you go.
Oh, there's 13.
Got it.
Can you see it all? Okay. There we go. You guys can give me an update on that too, what you see on your side. But I tell you what, my first impression here is I got to see Sal Frank wrestle a couple times, and of course last year. Was he undefeated last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's got a match streak of what? Probably close to 80?
It's right around there. Yeah.
Yeah, we my son wrestled in the semis last year at 106. So but yeah, he'll wear you out. He's strong and big and talented. So but yeah, he's got probably 80 plus, Rob, maybe close to 90. I mean, he's right up there.
Well, I tell you what, you can go, Rob.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay,
go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that, our state champion, North Dakota, one of the Tanafu brothers, Christian Tanafu, was stifled by him. I mean, he took it to one of North Dakota's best. I know that Tanafu's just a junior, but he walked through our state tournament, no problem. And Sal Frank gave him his 2 worst losses of the year, down in Rapid and at the Rotary.
In Rapid, did he tech fall him or major him? It was a blowout.
He teched him.
He teched him. I think Brendan's toughest match this year was against the 13-pound champ from Nebraska, Quentin Chavez. I think that was like a 7-4 match. And it was, the bad part was, Tanafu was a returning state champ, and so was Chavez in Nebraska. And Gehring came up here, and they just came up here this year with some good kids, but they hadn't been here before. So he ended up the 4, and that probably could have been the finals.
Right.
It was a good match.
Well, I know the Tanafu's got some D1 looks.
And Brendan's only had 3 or 4 matches this year, I think, that have gone. He's set the school record for tech falls in a season this year as well. So a lot of pins, a lot of tech falls, a lot of bonus from him.
Well, now if we look at this bracket close, how many have you seen Olson wrestle a lot this year? I have not. A 2 seed.
Oh yeah, that's Caden Olson. He went to a 1-point match with Hoverson last year in the semifinals at 106, and yeah, he's a tough wrestler from Sturgis. He's had a good year. They got a tough schedule too, and his brother's at 120. But my son has wrestled those two brothers since they've been about 5, so one or the other. But Caden's very good. Yep.
Okay. And how about Stuntbeck is that T? Or what is
T area?
T
Yep.
area. Okay, so it's they got it as tear.
Yeah.
Yep. Tell me a little bit about Stuntbeck.
Have you seen him, Rob?
Yeah, I have not seen him either. We don't see T at all.
He's a big, long kid. And he's, cradler, very talented. Last year I think Eimers was at 13, and Wyatt was kind of the odd man out, maybe, in that lower weight class, and he got a little bit bigger. But their 1, 2, 3 punches there at T are pretty good, and he's part of that for sure.
Okay. And I do see a Huron wrestler, freshman, getting in at 1-16. Was that the correct record?
That is actually correct. He had to win his first match at Regions, and he did. I believe they, and I can't remember what school it was, but their varsity guy was hurt, so they brought in their JV kid, and he was able to beat him. It was I think a 5-man bracket at that weight in Regions. So talking to one of their assistant coaches, he was pretty pumped about getting him in though. So, but yeah, that record's accurate.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I think when I
look at the Boonstra kid has had some good wins this year, for sure. The Bomb kid it was tough. He was at 106 last year. He was pretty good. And the Omi kid, the brother of the 6-pounder, is in there as well. And so I mean that weight class is loaded with some good kids as well.
Okay. So who did get the 6th seed in that one? Was that
the Matt,
Omi, or was okay how they had that?
Yeah, Omi got the 6th seed. Yep.
Okay. So I saw the Harrison kid there. Harrisburg, I mean. Okay. Well, I tell you what, this could be a wide open bracket too, besides South Frank. I think the rest are battling. For placing. There's going to be a lot of jockeying in this one.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes down to the end of the year, I think, some of these kids had some pretty good wins at the beginning of the year, and some of them took some tough losses towards the end. And, that happens, or some kids get, if you're not sick or hurt now, you didn't wrestle enough for the most part, all year. But, the Weiland kid's been wrestling good too. There's a lot of good kids in there as well.
Yeah, I think one of the matches to watch in that first round is the Stoller and Perman match, the Madison and Rapid City Central. Both those kids are good, and that Stoller's had a really good year, 34-6 this year. And I've seen him wrestle. He's got a lot of talent as well. So I of the first round matches, that's one I'm going to have my eye on.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, well, let's move up to 120. See if it pops up there. Do you guys see 120 on your side?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. There we go. Now you got your first Sioux Falls Lincoln wrestler sitting in the one spot. He's just a freshman, of course. And on the bottom side, you got a Rapid City boy, Larson, of course.
I would have liked to have seen that match. Didn't they just wrestle in a tournament a few weeks ago?
They wrestled in Brookings.
To me, that's an upset, I guess. But I don't know. I haven't even heard of Mensa really until that happened.
Yeah, I think his dad's a Weston Springs guy, and I think he was a former state champ. But Alex has been wrestling, I want to say, in the state tournament as a 7th or 8th grader in the lower weights. And I heard I kind of heard secondhand, and I wasn't there. I didn't see the Brookings tournament, but I heard he got a cradle on Kale in the first period, went up like 5-0 or 6-0 or something. And then Kale came back and got a couple takedowns late, and then I think just kind of ran out of time. And Kale was injured a little bit this year, I think. And but I tell you what, there's a lot of state placers in this bracket. This might be one of the deeper brackets in the state tournament. I mean, you look at the Eimers kid, the Olson kid from Madison, Santiago from Chamberlain. Simmons Mo was at 106 last year, and he got hurt at the end of the year. I think we went 3-2 or 3-2 last year with him in Madison. The Dyer kid from Yankton has had some good wins. This is a bracket to watch, I think, at state.
This is deep. That Santiago, I watched him, and he's explosive at times from Chamberlain. He's sitting in that 8 spot.
And yet we haven't even talked about Kelton Olsen, who he had a tough match with Kale at Regions, but he's had a good year, and he got hurt last year and probably might have placed or likely would have placed at 13 last year. So he's a dangerous kid to wrestle as well.
Man, this is a very deep bracket.
Yes, and that Santiago, I watched him at Regions, and you're right, explosive is accurate. He can put you on your back just like that without really a lot of thought. He's got some high-end moves on him, so he was actually he's been fun to watch this year.
And the Sparks kid from Mitchell, he was a state placer last year. I think he ended up 4th behind. We wrestled him, I think, for 3rd. He moved up from 106 to 120. Boy, this bracket will be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yes.
Very much so.
There'll be some crying at the end of this one. Not to say it that way, but it's gonna be tough.
This is the bracket you don't want to be in.
This is tough. I tell you what, this is as tough as I've seen. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, whoever wins, they will have earned it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think for sure. This will be a battle all the way out to 7th and 8th. Even to not place, there's going to be a pretty good kid that probably doesn't place in this bracket or 2.
Yeah, that Saturday morning when the placing jockeying is going to take place, there's going to be a couple of good matches for even 7th and 8th here. Definitely.
Every one of the placing matches will be dynamite here. Yeah,
I totally agree. Okay, well, awesome. Let's go to 126 because I know there's a ton of good matches coming up yet. Oh, we got our Malone boy. Tell you what, he's really developed over the last few years. I've watched him wrestle many times, sitting at the number 1 there. Do you guys see that on your side, just to make sure?
Yep.
Gosh, I see this. I'm trying to look at that top half of the bracket, and I looked at this earlier, and I really think now. Do you know who his losses are too this year? Who Malone's losses are, and I know his dad watches stuff.
Oh gosh,
because I don't think they're in state, are they?
Well, no, I'd have to look it up. He might have. Right. I think he lost to a kid in Bozeman when we were up there.
Right, I remember
that was pretty good at, and then it might have been a North Dakota kid. And then I don't know. He might have took one early, but he hasn't lost much lately. He's been wrestling very well, but you got the former state chap sitting at 4.
Yeah, I know that. I'm looking at that
crazy.
Too.
I know, and Vogel had beat and Fisher on the bottom. He didn't have that many matches last year. I think he was hurt part of the year, but that's a wrestling family. I know his little brother used to wrestle my youngest, and I saw him at middle school state. But this is another bracket that that O'Connor kid was at 106 last year from Harrisburg. He's dangerous to wrestle. The Sparks kid, the Huska kid, the Sursa, he's dangerous. He's got a pretty good half Nelson. He's one of the kids that he gets right out in front of your chin when he runs it, and it's hard to stop. And he's got a motor. So, and that Audi kid, he's had some sneaky wins this year too. So it's seeding this thing had to be a nightmare for some of these guys.
Well, that's the first thing that pops out to me is seeing Hollingshead at the 4 seed and that semifinal matchup. That's going to be a tough one. That'll be fun to watch.
Man, I tell you what, I always want to be a fly in the wall at some of the seeding meetings. And another one where coaches are probably trying to get him to the opposite side of Malone. But, I don't know how long their seeding meetings took, but I guarantee that some of these are they're looking deep into track to see what kind of criteria.
And normally, like they came out last night, I think about 9 rapid time. We were down at Buffalo Wild Wings and, maybe 9:30, and we kind of got a chance to look at the pre-seeds. And they don't really move them that much from what I hear. There's a few moves, but, it's all based on, seed points. And, if you're more than, more than one seed point away from somebody, you're likely not going to get moved. But if you're tied or you're within 1, there is some movement. But, part of our problem as a state, too, is not everybody gets to wrestle each other. So even trying to find a common opponent, it's hard to do unless, like Aberdeen wrestles North Dakota kids. So do we. But, somebody down in Vermilion might not, so it gets tough.
Well, I see that Barnhart, who ended up dominating, winning the state in North Dakota. The Bozeman kid ended up winning it. And then you got Holland, so you can see that.
Oh, Malone's losses are 2 to Barnhart and 1 to Hollingshead earlier this year. I think it was at the invite. And then I think he lost to a Bozeman kid.
Yeah, I see Ed put it on there. Thank you, Ed, again.
Oh, yeah.
We don't look at that screen because you guys are watching the brackets. I know. It's good, though. I tell you what, thanks for the comments again. Keep commenting. Hey, we've had up here 35, 40 people watching live on Facebook. And YouTube will be a lot more. Awesome, guys. Any more comments, feel free. If somebody wants to talk about a bracket, feel free. I'll keep looking over at the comments, and we can go from there, too. This bracket, like I said, another one to enjoy. Let's go straight to 32. Okay, now, I tell you what, one of the kids that I enjoyed really watching in Aberdeen was Althoff. I tell you what, he was a machine and a motor that I could not believe. He just kept going and going. And he faced a Watertown kid, if I remember right, in the finals. And that was a great match.
Well, Althoff's from Watertown, so.
No, I'm trying to think who he faced in the Aberdeen. Lee Wolf in the finals. I got to think about that again. But it was a good match.
Well, his one loss was kind of a controversial call at the Rotary, to be honest, and I don't know, that was a 50-50 call, but I got a chance to see him wrestle the duel against Pierre the night before middle school state, and obviously at a couple other tournaments, but he's a very calm wrestler. He's really relaxed. It almost seems like he bait kids into shooting on his leg, and then he's kind of like Larson. He ends up scoring a lot, scooting and sliding around. And but yeah, he's definitely fun to watch. He's very talented, very comfortable upper body. It's just one of those wrestlers that has got a lot of offense. So you better be ready to go.
Yeah, he doesn't panic. He's not afraid to scramble with you.
It was Sear from Canton he wrestled.
Okay,
sure.
That's who he wrestled in the finals. That's who it was, and it was a great match. I tell you what. I'll go to the duel in a little bit, but Canton being the 3 seed in the B duel is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but McCook, I'm sorry. You're the 6 seed. I'm sorry for your first round draw in the B.
Right.
One can hope that they'll tweak some of the criteria, but at least we have a state duels.
Right.
You have to start somewhere.
Well,
I will say too that Riley Williams in this bracket, he's always one that he finds a way to get up to the podium. He's a great wrestler when you get a chance to see him. We don't see Lennox a lot, but I tell you what, the last few years, he's right in there. He's, top cream of the crop. He's a dangerous wrestler for sure. That Friedrich kid from Beersford, Alcester, Hudson, I saw he had a good weekend. Bo Beavers is tough. He's been tough for years. The Skoostad kid is probably one of the stronger kids. I had a wrestler tell me that it was one of the strongest kids he's ever wrestled, and he's a little bit more upper body and stuff too. The Kettleson kid had a great tournament at Regions. I mean, this bracket is got some, for sure 6 to 8 that, I mean, they're going to battle.
Yeah, sneaky tough.
And the Blakeman kid, and the Blakeman kid from Spearfish, he's had a good year. He didn't have the region tournament. I think he maybe wanted to, and it hurt him a little bit here, I think. But at the end of the day, you wrestle where you're at, but there's some talented kids in here for sure. Yeah, the Schaefer kid from Pierre. I mean, you start looking at these brackets and, he's good. Well, everybody's pretty good.
Just a tough question here. Maybe does that southeast corner of the state not travel well, or they're just so satisfied staying in that corner of the state? I know that's a controversial question, maybe, but I think they don't travel enough.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, it's hard to see some of those kids because it seems like they're always just down in that area, and if you get down there, you're not going to run into them.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like too. I even got a text from a coach. He said the Washington kid is just a total athlete. So he'll be dangerous as well. But I'm in agreement with Rob. I think some of these schools just can't travel. Maybe they don't have the busing and can't do the overnights. We've had trouble with people coming to the invite for those reasons. And, it gets unfortunate when you see some of those basketball teams traveling and staying overnight at these classics and the wrestling team can't come out for a night. But, it gets difficult. You don't end up with many commons with the northwest corner of Iowa, or down in that Nebraska country or Minnesota. So, it makes it hard to see everybody, which makes finding common opponents and even head-to-head impossible.
Well, they're saving money. Sioux Falls has got the state wrestling tournament. They can travel a little bit.
Well, the schools probably lose money like out here in Rapid because so many teachers take time off and they got to pay for a sub and pay them to be there. So usually the school doesn't make any money on that. Usually it's the facility and probably the state.
Yeah. So what do you think of the facilities before we go any farther? Sioux Falls for wrestling, having both classes there.
I like it.
Can't they fit like 50 mats in there if they needed? Isn't that place that big?
I don't think so. I think with our new facility, I think we're going to have 14. One of the challenges that Sioux Falls has, and we found out this year, and I don't want to rant because we've been frustrated, but that they can't get everybody into the lower bowl. Oh. And unfortunately, there's some teams that buy a lot of tickets and have a lot of tradition, and they may not get as good as seats as everybody else, and it's kind of frustrating. And with that being said, if you can't do that, then maybe you should split it or rotate it somewhere else that can handle it.
Well, I know around here in Aberdeen we loved having the Bs. All that being said, the environment when you combine the A and B together is quite an environment, and it's strictly only going to the A's all the time. Getting to experience the Bs with the A's and hearing the Canton student section roar and hearing roars from out and trying to find which match is causing the roar with 8 matches going on, it really is quite the electric atmosphere. However, we know we like the Bees here in Aberdeen, and we put on a good show. So it's hard I'm split in that regards. I'm torn there because we really liked having the Bees here. I was never at them, but
it's hard to watch both matches, when there's so many going on. And, I think it makes it, challenging in that regard because you're kind of locked into the guys, and you might sneak a peek every now and then, but it gets very challenging with that, on that side of the aisle. But, ultimately, when this tournament, when they combined it, it out revenued, I think, the 7 football classes, so I don't see them changing it in the future because, it's a big deal for them.
When's it going to be in Rapid? Where at your new arena?
I think the new arena they're talking about maybe having that done in 2021. And I've been told 14 mats, we're hopefully, I think the goal would be to have a full-fledged like Rumble, full JV brackets and varsity brackets for the invite so that you can bring more kids to participate, and, I've even heard some coaches saying they're going to come out next year. We're going to have more teams and they might even ride a bus together, which is, we used to ride a bus with Central to Mandan. If you got half a bus that's going on a charter and you can fill it and split the cost, that eases pain for everybody, And the kids, for the most part, don't care. I mean, they know each other anyway. So
where in Rapid City are they putting the new place?
It's right off the back towards Central. So it'd be towards the west, so they're actually going to keep the old arena. They just can't use it for the ADA seating, but they could keep the floor for home shows and some of that kind of stuff. So, it'll be exciting to see kind of what happens with that in the future.
Okay. Would you hold the invite there too, to kind of break it in?
Yeah, we definitely will. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, we see we got 50 some people on here. We're moving to 138. Okay. Which in North Dakota was one of the 2 toughest weight classes. And if I look at this also dynamite weight class here. Okay, we got DeClan, Malone, and then we got Sailor on the opposite side. But I see a 63 match Rapid City Central wrestler here too.
Yep, Caden Cray. They're, it's, those guys at Regions, tough region. Obviously, Declan's had a good year. I was telling his father yesterday, one of the best matches I saw him wrestle was against Clay up at the Rotary in the finals. That was probably one of those matches where he just seemed to end up in the right spot every time they had a scramble, etc. Tell you what, the Brandt kid from Brookings has had a great year. He's tough. The Bowder kid from Mitchell is looked good. Johnson from Pierre is tough. Eideker sitting down there, quarterfinal match against possibly Sailor. I mean, Sailor's a returning state champ. But yeah, the Cray kids, they got a lot more duels this year. You know, they went to the Clash, so they got some extra matches. And Caden's a tough wrestler for sure. So that'll be an interesting bracket.
So how did the Malone Sailor match go then?
You know, in regions, you know, it was 4 or 5 points, I think, difference.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that's about what it's been this year. And the walk kid from Watertown is dangerous. So I mean, you know, the quarterfinals in this bracket are going to be electric.
Yeah.
The quarters, and if some of those kids that, you know, aren't favored on paper win, you know, they're just having one of those tournaments, they're still going to be good. You know what I mean? This is kind of like 20.
Yeah.
I would expect some upsets in this bracket in the quarters. There's just so many talented wrestlers, and they're fairly evenly matched.
I tell you, if you're heading for the podium as a team, this is one of those places where if your guy loses, they don't lose out of the tournament the next round, because it could happen in the quarters. But they're tough enough they could fight all the way back to third, or they could be out without any place.
Yeah, if they go back to the left, we want all, you know, you want all pins coming back.
Oh yeah, definitely team point wise. Okay, well, because I tell you what, interesting in North Dakota, a team was down by 30 points. End up dominating in the Class B, because the team that pulled ahead got a ton of guys in the finals, and that next day just on a roll, just pin Lisbon, the North Dakota Class B in the backside, and end up winning it by I think 20 some points overall. It was, I mean, wow. I think when I looked last, they were up by 35 bonus points over the next team, and that's crazy. That means they're pinning everybody on the backside.
Right.
And
replacing a lot of kids. Yeah.
Yep. And so Ed tells us the match was 7-2 in that final. So in the region, definitely. I love Scotty Andel. If you want to come on tomorrow night, if you're available, I'd have you on too. Talk about the bee stuff. Be a second guy I would get on.
He knows the bees for sure. He lives it.
Yeah, Scott, I'd love you to have you on. You know, I love your intensity. We'd love to hear what you want to say. And
He's always got good energy.
You don't always have to talk about your wrestlers. We'll have you talk about everybody else. Make them mad at you. No, I'm just kidding. So let's go on. I tell you what, 38, I'll be impressed. I'll be looking forward to this bracket a ton. That looks very tough. Okay, let's go to 45. Now, we do have an undefeated wrestler here, which I didn't see many in the bracket. I think I counted 3. It was all I remember seeing. Saul Frank, then
Voorhees and England.
Those are the 3 I remember.
And
Hutmaker.
And Nash at 285.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can't forget 69 straight pins.
Yeah. That's more undefeated. That's
yeah.
Because his streak is pretty big. I don't know, but there's a national pin total record, and I was going to try to find that out. I think he's pretty close. Because I just remember talking to his dad saying there's a possibility, because he was like in the top 3, top 4 going in that. So kind of interesting.
Well, I won a beer on a bet this weekend at Regents, because he went for 1 minute and 8 seconds, and I had the over on 1 minute.
That's pretty good.
It was a risky bet.
Did you have to pay the kid he wrestled to put his track shoes on or not?
No, he fought. He fought really well. That was the Todd County kid, and he's a
goer. Yeah, he's got a motor.
He didn't back down, and he fought him. I think he's the 5 seed, maybe. Yeah, Waylon Marshall from Todd County.
Yeah, I think he had wrestled him earlier this year, and he maybe it was at the invite. He came out ready to go. You know, yep. I think he wasn't dancing. He came out ready to try to score, which is great to see.
Yeah, he's a big athletic kid, and he's one. I mean, not bumping up to 285 here, but he's one that I'm going to kind of keep an eye on. I think he can pull off some upsets and get on that podium.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, that'd be a fun one to watch.
But in regards to 145, I think Lucas England is just a cream of the crop in this weight class. I don't see him really being challenged much, but you get into that getting on the podium talk, and that's where you'll really see the competition.
Mm-hmm. I think the 3 seed, I watched him wrestle earlier this year. I was impressed by him. Mitchell's Vilhauer, I watched a match of his once this year, and I thought I was impressed on. He's really coming on late in the season. But Voorhees, of course.
Logan, the 3 seed, he wrestled Sailor in the finals last year at 38.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you got Hinkle in there, you got Johnston, there's a ton of good kids in this bracket too as well. But I think, Lucas he's going for his third title, and there's a reason for that. He's pretty good. He's going to South Dakota State to wrestle, and so and I got a chance to see him in Vermilion. He's pretty calm, pretty patient wrestler as well. He doesn't get frustrated out there. He's a kid that you could have younger kids watch how to wrestle. He wrestles hard. He wrestles, but he doesn't get rattled out there. I haven't seen him. Maybe he has before, but for the most part, he's one of those kids that some of the younger kids could watch and look up to, because he just kind of does it the right way. So
now, does South Dakota have a senior athlete of the year, or are they just pick an MVW or something?
They have that. Argus Leader does some of that stuff, Rob, but I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I think it's more athlete of the year, not. Didn't Nash Hutmacher win that last year? I think it was an athlete of the year, but it is the Argus Leader that does all that.
Yeah, they kind of do that over on the east side of the state. There's some awards on the west side and other places, but it's other than maybe getting OW at the state tournament, they don't really do anything specific for wrestling. They do some region stuff, and the Coaches Association does vote on a Wrestler of the Year. We give that away at the AAU state tournament.
Okay.
But some of the region coaches, they get their awards there if they're able to be there. So,
okay.
But yeah.
Well, that's something we've done for quite a while, actually. Since 1986, North Dakota gives a Mr. Wrestler Award, and it's a senior, and it gets nominated per region. And then in 1991, they separated between the two classes. They used to do it between all, and then they've had it ever since. And so what they do is each region gets a nominee, and then at the state tournament, they award it, one for Class A and Class B in North Dakota.
Right.
And it's been very well received.
And even this bracket, Morrison's, he was hurt a little bit earlier this year after the invite, but he's wrestled a tough schedule. He beat Voorhees in the finals of regions. It was like an 8-4 match, but TJ I think he got beat in the semis last year. Really close call at the end, for him, or he could have slipped into the finals, I think. So he's a dangerous wrestler as well. We had him on our dual team last year. We went down to freshman sophomore duels, and he's got a nice tilt. He's aggressive. So this bracket, I think, like you said, I mean, the guys that place at this bracket, they're going to have to wrestle well.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, and I see Scott's going to probably do it tomorrow night. Awesome. He put an okay up there. So I'm going to count in you, Scotty. Here we go. Let's look at 152. I love it. I tell you what, these middleweights start getting dominated by seniors and stuff. I noticed that there is a freshman that did qualify at 152 in there from Rapid City.
Yes.
Other than that, it's usually senior dominated. We get 152, 160. So it's good to see someone else qualify here. Now, how has Klinkhammer done against
Kadoon?
Yep.
Is he 2-1 or?
Because I thought that was one of his losses.
Yeah, I thought maybe no. I think it's 3. Maybe it's 3-2 Kadoon, because they do see each other a little bit more often, because those Sioux Falls schools see each other in a lot of tournaments over there, because they don't travel as much. And I think Kadoon 3-2. So I think other 5 matches, they've all been close, and I got a chance to see Eli down in Yankton as well, and at the invite, and he's dynamite. Klinkhammer's tough. Van Camp is tough. Burris has had a great year. The West Central kid has had some good wins this year as well. Watertown. I mean, this is a good bracket. The Bose kid from Brookings has always been tough. So
I'm looking forward to that semifinal match with Van Camp and Klinkhammer. Van Camp's he's been wrestling really well this year, and he's been. They're both really good wrestlers, so I think that's going to be a close one. Of course, if you end up with a Kadoon and Klinkhammer finals, that's definitely one you don't want to miss.
There'll be some pushing doing there. I tell you what, they're both physical wrestlers.
Well, Klinkhammer's he's very technical. His technique is really incredible, and he can make one slight mistake turn into his favor pretty quickly.
Right, and Van Camp being a senior, I'm sure he's going to be, real motivated. He's going to be done. So I've seen him wrestle quite a bit this year too, and he looks good. So it'll be interesting to see, how that shakes out if that ends up being what it is.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, every once in a while, if you guys don't know this, but I love going over to track wrestling, and then I'll go to the seasons, and then I'll look up the different teams.
Mhm.
And so I was just as you guys are doing that, looking up Klinkhammer, and so I didn't quite get it done. But I don't know. You can go into the South Dakota if you guys have ever done that. I should go show you guys how to do that. Those people that are home, how you can research some of these wrestlers and how to look up the teams.
Oh yeah, you can research them. You can look at stats if they have them in there. You can navigate pretty good.
Yeah, Brandon Valley's been pretty good because you can go straight to their wrestlers. And I'm almost there. I'm going to go to Klinkhammer. Here, 1 second. They've got, as I keep going through here, oh boy, it is amazing how much stuff you can see. Yeah, definitely. Okay, Brandon Valley. You 1/2 a second while people are in there. And let's look at their roster. And then I can go over to their matches. And I pick up the wrestler. There he is, Isaac Klinghammer. Okay, so let's look at the last bit. He had beat Kadoon 4-3 in the Rider invite earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. And then I look, and he lost to a kid from Thunder Basin. Warren Carr, and that was
Warren Carr's good. Yeah, good wrestler. Yep.
And then he beat Van Camp 3-1 in the invite also. And so that's kind of an interesting one. Van Camp and him did meet there. And then his next, he lost to Kadoon 6-2, and that would have been the Warrior Invitational.
Yep.
And then if I keep going down, Kadoon beat him in sudden victory 3-1, and that was in the Jesse James Invitational.
Yeah, Brandon's tournament.
Yep. And then I go down, and he's won all the rest. So it's been since the 11th of January, and he's taken everybody out since then. Oh, yep. And he faced Kadoon there in the versus Sioux Falls Roosevelt in a duel 4-3. So
right.
You can actually you can start looking at these matchups, and we can go deeper than you ever wanted to. But I like to see that because when I look at this, you got the 1 and 2 on opposite sides of the bracket, and it's possible they won't meet. Van Camp could certainly beat them.
Yep.
But I tell you what, if you're deep into wrestling like I am, you could overanalyze this to death and love it.
Yeah, well, put it this way: I would not be surprised if Van Camp upset him.
Yeah. I tell you what, Pierre has their wrestlers ready. He has, I don't know what it is, comes to state tournament time, there are guys that he, let's say, has a questionable seed, will fight right through it. I've seen it the last couple of years, several years.
Well, you talk about wrestling on the backside. That was Pierre last year.
Yep.
They had quite a few kids wrestle above their seed, and that's how they ended up in second. They didn't have a kid in the finals, but every kid seemed to come through for them on the backside and got them those extra points.
Well, I tell you what, if it ends up being the finals, I see Kerry Johnston says Klinkhammer Kadoon should be highlighted match for the state tournament. Hope they get their votes for that. If that ends up that way, I tell you what, I don't get a vote, but whoever gets to vote for that stuff, I would vote for that too.
Actually, you can vote. It's South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
You can.
Bucks the vote. Yeah.
People can. Okay.
They do it on Twitter, I think. Yeah. And they might do it on their website. But yeah, if that ends up being the finals match, you couldn't go wrong with that one for sure.
Correct. I'm hopeful that the smart wrestling people in the state vote for a good finals match and not one that ends in 20 seconds like last year. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody loves the polar bear, but I would agree it wouldn't have to be the featured match.
Right.
Yep, I would agree. I think everybody loves the polar bear. His dad's probably
a good kid.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to 160. Now here we have our other undefeated wrestler, which we can talk about, Cooper Vore. He's been phenomenal all season long. Man, he's one of my favorites to watch.
In this weight class, if they get there to the semis, I'm really looking for that Menace and Jack Smith match. And if they meet up in the semis, the 2 and 3 seed. Those two kids have been around a long time, and I'm pretty sure they battled each other a lot. believe they're pretty even. So that one, I think, will be an exciting match to watch.
I agree. Yeah. And Voorhees, he's a Wyoming commit. He's excited to get there and, hopefully try to finish off this season. And he's wrestled some good competition in Wyoming and up in North Dakota. We weren't able to go to the Rumble this year. He had won it last year, beat Seth Gross's brother, I think, at the Rumble in the finals from Apple Valley. But he's dynamite to watch. He can shoot to either side. He's this is another one of those kids, that youth kids could look up to, that wrestles hard and wrestles the right way. And he's exciting to watch. He's really been a leader for our team, I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that program is going to miss him next year.
Yeah, I wish a lot of those seniors were juniors, but it's crazy. It doesn't seem like it. I remember all those kids when Jensen was coaching, in our youth club, Rick, and they had all those kind of older kids in the corner, and all the parents would kind of look over there like those were the kids that were kind of the studs in the youth program, and now they're all juniors and seniors. It goes by so fast. So.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yep, I'll have to look because I remember the Windsor kid. He had made, I believe, the finals for Colorado this past weekend. I was going to look at that. So that was that Eaton kid. I can't remember. I'm trying to think who he faced in the Rotary finals. Oh, that Sydney kid.
Right.
That Lutz, he won the Montana State tournament.
Yeah. Yep, he did.
And because, Sydney, it's insane. They got 15 weight classes there, and they placed in the top 4 in all 15 weight classes.
Well, 13.
Didn't they place 15 kids, though, in the top 4?
They can take 26 to regions.
I think.
Okay. That's how they can. That's what our coach was telling us, that, and instead of just taking a couple extra, they can take like almost their whole JV team. And if they qualify, they can get them in.
Okay. I'm going to have to.
Because they had so many brackets. They've got 3 classes, which and even Wyoming has 3, which, is with fewer wrestlers and us only having 2, it's a little bit, there's a lot more kids that have the opportunity to make state and place. So, but yeah, I think they can take quite a few more. And that's interesting.
Well, I'm going to look into that. That's a good idea. I should know more about that. They're closer to me than you.
Well, if we ever get a bye in the state tournament or something happens, and they added that 5th and 6th place match for our regions this year, John, so that if somebody didn't make weight, or knew they weren't going to make weight or skin checks or got hurt, that then they wrestled the 5th and 6th place matches out at regions this year, and then they did criteria, and I think they sent those 5th place kids. And they can go to state, and if anybody doesn't show up, they can weigh in and they'll put them in the bracket.
Okay.
So, Tom, do you know for sure? Because that's what a lot of our discussion this weekend was, what that was. So is it just, do they take those 4 kids that finished 5th and seed them, and then only the one kid goes and he weighs in, or how, do you know?
Yeah, what they did was, and I think I kind of heard today, because there are some questions about it, that they took those 4 kids and they basically – looked at criteria on all of them. They picked one of them and they sent that out to the coaches. So those kids probably know who they are, I think, and the coaches for sure know. And then, there's also, I think there was some discussion on whether or not a couple kids would get hurt this week or something would happen. And I think the state's goal is, and I'm not speaking for the state, obviously, but I think they want to make sure they have a full bracket. So, and some of those kids probably are practicing anyway. It's just, and some of them that might be on a dual team of those 8 teams would probably be coming and making weight as well. But I think they picked one of them, and I think those coaches know that. And Andal could probably confirm that, but I'm pretty sure they already know who that kid is for each weight class. And you hate to see anybody step out, but it would give them an opportunity to be there.
Okay. Yeah, we had an odd incident in North Dakota. There was a region that just had a shortage of 220-pounders. I mean, they only had 2, and the rest of the regions were loaded. And so it's just odd how it worked. And they decided that they put in the names of the 5th place guys in the regions in North Dakota. And then they basically voted on the top 2 to bring in, and so 2 5s got in North Dakota in the 220 in the Class
interesting.
B. Yep, which is really odd. It really is. Sometimes you'll have an injury or something you find in early where someone gets injured during the week and there's a replacement. Because we had all of our regions wrestle that extra place match for the 5th place situation too.
Right. One of the coaches just texted me and he sent me the list for both A and B. So those kids already probably know who they are. And those are the kids that probably ended up in the wrong spot, didn't, you always say, geez, if you lose that first match, you might have a little easier road to get to 3rd and 4th. Yeah. But if you win it and you cross, right. It's one of those things that, they probably ended up in that kind of situation. They lost a match they shouldn't have, or they wrestled pretty good and got to the semis and came back and ended up with a pretty tough kid. But it sounds like those kids know who they are, which is good. And we don't want a hole in the bracket. I think we want to make sure everybody's got matches.
And how about for the duels? How many extra? Because it's supposed to be unlimited. Let's talk about that for just half a second. Is somebody bringing, let's say, 5 extras, 2 extras? 3?
We're bringing 12.
12 extras.
I think.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not the coach, obviously, but I'm pretty sure. I think they're going to take more than the allotment. I think there was talk of 17, and then I think they decided to uncap it this year. And I don't know if that'll change in the future. More than likely it will, but I think this year you can bring as many as you want, which I think is great. Some of those kids that are 8th or 9th graders to get in that atmosphere and just even be on the sidelines for that. I think it's wonderful.
Okay. I tell you what, gonna have to have a couple extra babysitters for the rooms though.
Yeah.
I know babysitters is not the right word, but chaperones. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming
running down to the pool before it closes.
I'm assuming our coach will take some more, and we've always taken some of the kids that didn't qualify to the tournament to see it and experience it, because the last thing you want, it's just like the invite. I remember there's some teams that used to come early and I was always cleaning there or getting things ready. And some of those kids walked into the Civic Center and they'd never been in there before. They didn't know what it was like to wrestle in there. They walked around, they kind of looked up in the sky. And, for some of those kids, it's a great opportunity to get in there and see the facility and kind of know where you go and know where your locker room is. I mean, it's a comfort thing. And, I don't know that they allow that in Sioux Falls, that you can get in there before they open the doors. But, in Rapid City, I think, we try to make sure that we're there for some of those teams that want to show up practice.
Well, and I think that's one of the big positives of having the state dual tournament now is you got a kid who's not probably going to make the state, but he can fight. He's got an important part in a duel. Maybe he's just not getting pinned, and he's going to contribute to a state title on it. And what a great experience for that individual that he never would have got simply on the individual side.
Well,
so I'm excited to watch those state tournaments, the state team tournament, and what it can bring in regards to wrestling as a whole in the state of South Dakota.
I'm pretty sure you could go on track, John. There's 2 tournaments set up, one for the traditional individual tournament and one for the duels. And I'm pretty sure the teams are unlocked, so you can go in and see how many each team has loaded in there, now. But not that matters. But at the end of the day, I think the more the merrier. Let those kids enjoy it, be a part of it.
I would love to see it. That is awesome. Yes. Well, I tell you what, I'll contest to it too. In North Dakota, my son did not qualify in the individual, but their dual team was in it, and he actually got to wrestle the 2 finalists. Those were his 2 matches.
Oh.
So his 2 matches, he faced the one who is actually the 3 seed who upset the number 1 in the state finals, but he got tech falled and he got pinned. My son, but it was an experience. A freshman at 152, and it was one of those where would he have had the same experience otherwise? And I don't think so. So he felt part of something bigger than himself. It was a team thing, and so definitely a good thing for all the sport. Okay, let's zip to 170. What's crazy is I know I could stay here all night and talk wrestling. Okay, so let's look at 170. And I tell you what, here's an interesting couple matches in here. I really looked at the 4 and 5 here. I thought that was one big matchup. The Brink, and I think it's Terpstra from Brandon Valley. Yep.
Right.
And so I was really interested in that one. And then again, probably the 6-3. Those are some good matches.
Yeah.
Terpstra's been around. He's a very decorated athlete and a heck of a wrestler. I agree with you. I think that quarterfinal match will really be interesting to see. And whoever gets through that with the Jung class is actually going to be another really good match.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Jung Klaus won it. Did he win 160 last year? Was that 160 he won it?
Yeah, I believe. No, yeah, 160. Yep. Yeah, because he started at 82, I think, early this year, and I think he's real long. The returning state champ. Even that Van Overshield, he is hurt earlier this year and he came back. He's just a sophomore, but he's a good wrestler. Terpstra and Brink have had some battles this year, for sure. Stroop and the Kratz kid is, as a sophomore, he's good. Obviously the lean kid he started out in our youth program years ago. I used to coach him in youth football. But he moved to Huron. His dad, took a job up there, and he's a goer. He's a strong kid. And so that'll be an interesting bracket.
Yeah, very much.
Well, these guys, Central, did they go to, what bigger tournament did they go to? They went out to St. Albert, Michaelville. I know they wrestled them.
They wrestled at the Clash this year, John.
That's what it was. I was trying to remember because I remember seeing some results, and he had wrestled a really good kid that Carl, that's like Lure from St. Michael Albertville, who he's probably ranked number 1 or number 2 in Minnesota, and I know he lost to him, and I was trying to figure out what his losses were.
Right. No, he's one of those kids that you kind of question yourself whether you're going to go down or not, because he's so long, and
those cradles are dangerous.
Yes, they are. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
I saw that Brink gave him a pretty good match in the finals, though, at the region.
He did. It was close. We were close in Mandan, or no, not Mandan. Another tournament early this year. And we ended up we skipped over him at the duel. We kind of bumped and we dueled Central. So Caleb wrestled up a weight. They had the show for that weight class, so he came out and we just bumped up and. But, being in town and, going to a lot of the same tournaments and Central started to go to some other tournaments, in Montana. I think they actually had some kids travel out to the state tournament in Montana because they got to know some of those Sydney kids. So they went out there and had a blast with those kids. So, it's a small world. They make friends and go out on a free weekend and, get to see a different type of state tournament.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I tell you what, that Junkless, he also had a decent match. I remember watching him in the Rotary against Gage Roldson, who ended up being North Dakota state champion at 170. And so I got a feeling that could be interesting there. This bracket is, I think there's some wins and losses that are going to be decided. Very close matches here.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Definitely. I don't know. What do you think there, Rob? Anything from Aberdeen down there?
170. No, I don't believe we qualified anyone at 170. No, we didn't. Okay. And we didn't have an 82, so we're not there either. Our next Aberdeen kid will be at 95, and he can make some noise. Dylan Stabner at 95.
Okay.
We'll see.
I was trying to look through your region a little bit. Okay. Well,
I'm at 170. I'm really looking to see how Sam Stroop does. Of course, he's an NSU wrestling commit, so I'm kind of going to be paying attention to him and see what kind of tournament that kid puts together.
Okay.
Yeah, he and Brink had a 1-point match in Yankton, and I think Brink had beat him at state last year, and Stroop had got him earlier in the year last year, but it seems like some of those kids can't get away from each other year to year.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
And again, there is a freshman in every bracket so far. I've seen Zerpel. There we go, making another freshman in at one of the bigger weights.
Yeah, from West Central. Yep.
Okay, well, let's go up to 82. Okay. Brandon Valley. Now, how about team-wise? Do you think Brandon Valley is a good shot to take home a state title this year?
They will be in the mix.
Yeah, I think, them and Watertown, Pierre, Brandon, if their kids wrestle where they're at in terms of rankings to that, they're going to be tough to beat. You're going to have, and that doesn't necessarily take into account all the bonus that's possible, but they're going to be challenged or challenging to match up with. And of course, Damien here, the returning state champ as a freshman, and his one loss was to the kid that was highly ranked nationally in an overtime match from Windsor, who I think likely won.
Yeah, he won it.
And he actually placed out he might have won the Doc B as well. I think he maybe even placed out there. And I did, their coach told me that he was 1 week out of football. I guess he's a heck of a football player, and I'm not so sure he's committed to Minnesota. And I think there was some worry that he might want to play football instead of wrestle. But I think he's committed to Minnesota to wrestle.
Wow.
Yeah. He is exciting to watch. Really good hips. He's very good defense. And talking about Brandon Valley, I mean, Brandon, it could turn into where, just like last year, where in Stevens, no one could catch Stevens. It could be that situation this year where no one can catch Brandon Valley on the final day.
Well, I tell you what, Brandon Valley, when I look at the seeds, if I just gave them points for just seeds, I tell you what, they're going to be tough to stop. I really I just keep looking at every bracket. I'm going, oh man, another one seeded. And they're great records, their whole team.
Yeah, I think they only lost 2 in regions, and there'll be a tough dual team too, because they get a lot of pins, So
where are they sitting in the bracket? I didn't look at that close. Where are they sitting in the dual bracket?
They're the 3 seed. They're the 3 seed. I have it right up here. They'll face probably Stevens in the Stevens is the 2 seed. And here's the 1 seed with Watertown, the 4 seed, and that's going to be fun to watch. So those semis and that final, yeah, those are going to be must watch.
Yeah, that was a 3-way tie for the ESD duels between Watertown Pier and Brandon, and we had I think a 6-point or 9-point duel with Brandon. If everybody's healthy and everybody wrestles, depending on how things shake out, it certainly will be interesting.
Yeah.
So what is the schedule for that semifinal duel?
Those semifinals are Friday. They do both Friday evening, the semifinals and the finals.
Oh, so they go back to back?
Yeah.
See, I was trying to catch that duel, how your schedule's working. When's your semi-duel schedule? Because
5 o'clock Central Time, and then the finals are 8 o'clock Central Time.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely have to be there. Yeah, makes my trip a little quicker. I think if I can, I have to rent a plane flight here.
Yeah, the individual semis are Friday morning, so that semi slide that one of my kids experienced a few years ago might not be as common nowadays, because you lose that semifinal match, you don't have to wrestle again in 45 minutes. You got the whole day next day before you go at it again. So that might be something we don't see anymore. Hopefully, at the state tournament, is that semi slide.
Right.
Well, it's going to be brand new, because now you're adding, 3 more matches to some of these guys over a big weekend, and just the lone pressure of it all. It's going to take some very disciplined coaches and wrestlers to stay focused.
I think it's a single limb though, the dual format. So do you know, Tom? If you lose, I think you're done in regards.
If you lose the first match, then I think they place 4.
They play a 3. They'll wrestle a 3rd, 4th. Okay.
I think so.
Yes, I had heard that there's a 3rd, 4th also.
Yeah.
So if you lose the semi, still that 3rd place duel going on the same time the finals are going on. I'd heard.
Right. But, yeah. So I assume there'll be 4 mats out there, and they'll just wrestle them out. It'll be interesting to see kind of how that all works out. There's been a lot of chatter about that. Obviously, you've probably seen and heard. And
it's awesome.
But there's a lot of people that are excited for it, but a lot more people that aren't wrestling and coaching it appears, that are excited about it.
As a casual fan and as a wrestling fan myself, I am really excited for it. I'm looking forward to that Friday night session to see how that turns out. And the jockeying and rotating, bumping kids up and matchups and that type of thing, which I know when Watertown and Brandon Valley duel, that's what they did, and didn't work out for Watertown as well as I think they hoped. But you have that strategy that you just don't have in an individual tournament, and that's, I think, what makes the duels a little more exciting.
Yeah, I didn't get to see Brandon Valley wrestle, but I watched Watertown and the Lee Wolf. And I tell you what, they're a team that surprises me a little bit. They've always got a good program, but I couldn't believe how physical they were. There were so many of their wrestlers that just took it to people. And they also, I don't know, something about it. The Watertown fans were they're kind of almost like I thought Class B, where it was loud, it was intense. That's just
They travel well.
yes, that's a good part of it. And
Yeah.
you start bringing that atmosphere to the duel. The swings of excitement and things is huge. I really think that.
Right. And in this, I mean, even at 82, Shunky obviously has had a great couple years here. He was a good youth wrestler as well. But, the Hartford kid in Watertown, he's tough. And Rasmussen, just a sophomore, he's only taken 4 losses, doesn't have as many matches this year. The Thompson kid from Chamberlain, I don't know if you've seen him wrestle, but he's a good wrestler. He's dangerous.
I'm trying to think. Did Thompson wrestle Hartford in the finals of the Lee Wolf? I almost believe they did.
They might have.
I mean, and then you're looking at Sioux Falls, Washington, 31-13, and they wrestle each other a lot over there. That's a pretty good record for a senior. It's a great record. So there's definitely some good kids in this bracket. Obviously, Shunky with just 1 loss and coming back as a state champion. He's pretty slick on his feet.
He'll be tough.
Yeah, he's tough, but there's some other kids. There'll be some good quarterfinal matches in this one as well, I think.
Yeah, Hartford from Watertown beat Thompson from Chamberlain, pinned him in the semifinals of the Lee Wolf.
Oh, he did? Yeah.
Yep. And then he beat the Huron wrestler in the 3rd place match.
Yeah. Hartford is a goer. He's on you, for sure.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. I tell you what, it's awesome. I just love going to the state tournament. I don't know about you guys. Either one, it doesn't matter. Just I used to go just to the South Dakota, let's say Friday. I'd be sitting in Pierre, and then I'd have to drive Friday night all the way to Rapid City to get to the A or something. I did that several different times, or down to Sioux Falls. It was a craziness, or going across the whole state. But I tell you what, I love the atmosphere. Like you said, the Class B in Aberdeen was awesome. You take those wooden bleachers all the way down, and you load them 3/4 full of blue and yellow Canton fans. Whatever, and a few of those Webster people and all those good ones. You'd be surprised how crazy it got there. Okay, let's look at 195. 195. Okay, let's see what sticks out to me. Anything stick out to you guys right away?
Well, the only thing that sticks out to me is that the returning state champ that was in this bracket went to 220.
Okay.
So Owen Warren, it appears he went into regions, and he had bumped up in a duel and wrestled Damon's younger, 8th grade brother, Navarro, right. And had beat him in overtime, and then, went to regions and I think got him 8-6, and ended up, I don't think Yankton had a 220 pounder, so he bumped up, which obviously everybody else moved up too, The Harrisburg kid's tough. The Bowick kid, he's a former Miller B wrestler, but got a lot of ties to Pierre. Coming up in their youth program, he's a good wrestler. And then of course Becker from Dakota Valley, he's just got 12 matches on the year, but he's been a dangerous kid because most people don't see him during the year, because he's down in that corner that doesn't really get out west or up north, And then Brandon Valley, Dominic Tucker's in there, and there's another kid that is sitting at a 5 seed that can definitely score some points. The T area kid, the Panning kid at 33-7, I've seen him wrestle. He's pretty good. Obviously, the Aberdeen kid, I honestly believe he's kind of been underrated all year. He's built like a brick. He looks like he's the guy that, and we joked about this on a prior show, John. I think he's a running back. He's the guy by the second half you don't want to tackle anymore. I know that some of the
also sporting that mustache. Was he?
Well, he's been sporting that mustache in 6th grade. We'd take him out for youth duels, and those other team coaches would look at him and just forfeit. He literally was shaving back in 6th grade. So he's a strong kid, and his technique is, in the last few years, he's really gained a lot better technique, and he's got a good motor on him too. So I'm looking forward to in his state tournament.
Well,
He's
I tell
got
you what,
some tough matchups here early, but I think he can make some noise still.
yeah, I tell you what, sitting in that 8 seed, I'd rather have that spot than probably sitting in one of the 6 or 5 or 4 seed spots to try to place for sure. But I think he'll give some people some run for the money, definitely.
Yeah, the Wirtjes kid, that'll be a good match. It
will be.
He shoots a lot, and he's kind of on you too. But yeah, there's a good mix of kids in this one as well. I think the quarters in this one will be pretty decent. And when you get to the semis, on paper, there'll be some pretty awesome matches.
Okay. How about the freshman out of Brookings? Any idea with him?
I haven't seen him wrestle. Have you, Rob?
Yeah. Dylan Stabner wrestled him. I think, I don't want to say it incorrectly, but I thought it was a pin for Dylan, but I'm not certain on that.
Right.
I honestly, I just can't remember.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I'll get to the state tournament and I'll have to circle some of my finalists. I usually have a couple guys that I'll get into a bracket for $1 and see who our finalists are.
Actually, yeah, take that back. I'm pretty sure that Olsen kid beat Dylan.
Yeah, I thought so.
In that duel, yeah. I think actually it was flip flopped, and I was surprised at it. Yeah, handled him pretty good. I'm in their heavyweight, Brookings heavyweight, got Miller, pretty solid.
Right.
It's kind of interesting there because I didn't think that your Aberdeen boy would get an 8 seed unless he lost somewhere along the way to some of these other ones in the middle. I thought he was probably going to get a 5 when I looked at the last rankings and stuff.
Oh, sure.
And so
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Aberdeen travels pretty well, so it's not hard to find a common with a plus or minus for you with a team like Aberdeen. They get around a little bit, so whether they're at the Invite or over on the east side or even up in North Dakota, you can usually find one.
Sure. Okay, let's roll to 220. Got Yankton's Owen Warren sitting up at 1. And then you got another Brandon Valley sitting down at 2 in a great spot there. But I think I like Spearfish's guy. That 2-3 matchup could be a great match.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking in that 4-5 matchup with Lincoln Stahl, and Brink Stahl. I've seen Stahl wrestle a lot throughout the years, and he is one tough competitor. So I think that's an interesting matchup right in those quarterfinals.
Yeah, we had Ryan wrestled him at the Rotary, and had a nice match against him. I think he kind of shot in, and Ryan had to go behind her over the top and got a takedown late. But that was a close match. The Hare kid has been good for years. He's a big, strong kid. Ryan ended up, not wrestling in the finals against him. And of course, Shunky has been the one all year. Right. And, his only 2 losses are to the Warren kid from Yankton. And he bumped up to wrestle him in the duel, and then he came up and beat him at Regions. So that'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Well, and he's been the talk all year. An 8th grader that good at 220 is really unusual to see an 8th grader dominate a weight class the way he's done this year when you're predominantly wrestling seniors and juniors.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, he's been, I mean, even Nash, I think as an 8th grader, I remember he placed at the Invite, and he very excited about that. And he was wrestling heavyweight at that time, but for sure wrestling 220, there's not going to be, except for some of the teams a little bit thin, you're not going to see a lot of younger kids at that weight that can slip in there. And some of these guys are pretty athletic. These aren't your standard, 220 pounder, 3-1 matches. They can score some points and throw people.
Well, I noticed that Culver from Vermilion gave him a match in the region semifinals. It was like a tiebreaker victory even there, where it went 7-6 when I looked at those results earlier today. So I was kind of surprised, actually.
Yeah, and I would assume he might wrestle Brandon Valley a little bit, close to Sioux Falls, but you never know. Kids, it looks like he's just got 40 matches, so he's probably been at most tournaments. But yeah, that's and then, it's the end of the year. I've argued, with a lot of these kids are getting better. The matches are getting closer. The kid you beat 8-1, now it's 8-4, or whatever. I mean, it's not everybody's gotten better, for the most part in every bracket. So the matches have gotten tighter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if you get to know people, you wrestle the same person a lot. It's scary that way. You could be 3-0 and then get to the state tournament, and that one loss you get to the one kid is because you've faced him so many times.
Right.
He stops that cradle you put on him in that first match.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, let's look at Big Nash heavyweight here. 38-0, and is he sitting at 69 pins in a row?
69, yeah. 69 in a row. Yep.
Well, I really don't see anybody touching him, but could we see? We do have an undefeated wrestler on the bottom half.
Yeah, and I didn't know if Gus would go 220 or, he's a returning state champ, isn't he, Rob?
Yeah, isn't he? I'm almost certain.
Yeah, I think he won it last year at 220.
I think he's been out most of the year with an injury.
Right. Yeah, I think is he going to play football at South Dakota State? Is that?
I don't know that.
I think he might be. I could be wrong, but the foot kid obviously was in the finals last year. I kind of thought he might go 220 depending on Mitchell's lineup and his weight.
He went about 240, I was told, this weekend.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, and he's a pretty athletic kid. We had him on our dual team when we were in middle school. I remember came down against Nebraska, and Nebraska's heavyweight came out in a full beard, and we're like, oh my goodness. As an 8th grader, you're like, oh, you got to be kidding us. But Nebraska's, they're good. Yeah, their red team was loaded. Actually, some of those kids I looked this weekend, they had won some state titles. So it's kind of fun to look back at those. But, obviously the Dago kid is he fills the weight out. The Taylor kid fills the weight out. But, if you can't stop a blast double in this bracket, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Interesting thing with Bo Foot, he was on his back in that blood round at Regents. So he fought off the entire first period off his back and ended up coming back to win that to make it to the state tournament.
Oh boy.
Almost a pretty big upset there. But he's a very athletic kid, and he showed the strength there because he had about 260 pounds on him for about 45 seconds chest to chest and was able to avoid the pin.
And I want to say his brother was at middle school state, and he's like 145 or 52 pounds, 7th or 8th grader from Mitchell. So, he was down there. So he's got another brother, but and he's a nice kid. Like I said, we had him on a dual team, and he's a lot of those. Mitchell had a really good sophomore class of wrestlers. They ended up taking a team to freshman sophomore duels last year. They got a young team. They do have some seniors and stuff too, but they had a good crop of sophomores, and that they had a new coach in there. Everson came in this year, with their coach stepping away. Yeah. So Carpenter, he stepped away, and but he kind of walked into a nice, some stuff in the cupboard, which is good. Mitchell was dominant, years ago, and obviously going back, they had a ton of good wrestlers, still do, but back then they were winning a lot of state titles.
Definitely. I tell you what, that's where I used to get all my news, because I tell you what, they had a radio station that covered it, and I used to be able to pick that up in Mobridge if I wanted to hear what's happening wrestling wise. Mitchell's always had good coverage down there, even their newspaper.
Right. Yeah, I think heavyweight will be a tough bracket, but for the most part, I think Nash is the cream of the crop there, and I think his goal of being a 4-timer, it looks like it's possible, and hopefully he can, do well at Nebraska, and we can watch him on Saturdays.
I would agree.
Yeah, go Big Red.
Yeah, and I did get a text from a coach that said Gus is an SDSU commit for football. So, yeah,
I love it. You get great comments there, Tom.
Oh well,
they trust texting you and not putting it online.
I don't know.
No, that's awesome. No, guys, I tell you what, I'm looking so forward to the state wrestling tournament. I prepare so much during the regular year for what happens in North Dakota, but yet South Dakota, the wrestling is phenomenal. You guys have such a great tradition and so many more teams. I get to know the North Dakota wrestlers because I get to see all of them all the time. And so when I look at the South Dakota stuff, I miss that southeast corner so often because I don't get to see them. I don't get down to Sioux Falls over Christmas. I should probably do that.
And I looked it up the other day just because I was looking something else up on the National Federation of High Schools, just in the participant numbers between North Dakota and South Dakota, just to get an idea. And it was like 880 and close to 1,600. That's the difference.
Right.
It's about double. Yeah,
Wow.
it's about double. And I know we're kind of battling other sports, and there's talk of changing weight classes, with what's happening on the East Coast, and we still allow 7th and 8th graders to compete, in high school, which some other states like Montana and Wyoming don't. But we don't seem to have a lot of, at a lot of tournaments. Frankly, there's a 95-pound, exhibition bracket, 100-pound bracket. I don't know that we don't have enough little guys to compete. And some of them are darn good. And Rob, we saw it this weekend at Middle School State or last weekend. So, if anything, if they're going to look at taking a weight class out, I don't think it's down low. I think it's up top.
I agree with you, but it seems like out there in Pennsylvania, it's the opposite for them. They don't allow those young kids, the 7th and 8th graders, to wrestle, and then they want these extra weight classes up top. And it's baffling to me because everywhere you go throughout North Dakota, South Dakota, it's the 95 to 220 is where you really are short. You don't have full bracket.
Yeah, you might have a kid buy into the semis in a tournament, and have to wait till 1:30 or 2 o'clock to wrestle his first match, where some of the little guys already got 4 in. So, I just, I know, our state director has interest to get on the national board. At least I've heard that. But when you get on that national board, you can't deviate. So, I don't know that if they do change it, I don't know that not deviating is going to be good for the state of South Dakota unless we started the middle school state tournament a few years ago in 2017, and I'd love to see a JV state tournament, a legit one for those kids somewhere centrally located. But if we do end up doing that, then I think we have to have that. We do. We'll have to start something for those kids. Otherwise, we're going to be at risk for losing those kids, Rob. And
Tell me about your middle school state, because we were going to talk. Tom, we haven't been able to get on. How'd that go? Tell me a little bit.
It went really good. We started with 205, I think, the first year, and we were going to split the 6th graders, and we ended up just lumping them in, and we got up to 400, and that was kind of always been our cap, and we neglected to put that on our flyer, but we had it in track, and it locked up on Wednesday afternoon, and we had texts and emails, and of course, we had the maximum of 400 in there. And then I have another 25 kids that were signed up that hadn't paid. So then we had to figure out if they were coming. And then we ended up turning away 20 or 25 kids because we were worried about the table workers and the officials being that long of a day, because we wrestled from 9 to about 6. So I've talked to some coaches, and, I'll reach out to you guys too, Rob. We want to figure out, it can't really turn into a 2-day tournament. We want to make it cost effective. Centrally located in Pierre, they do a great job with horsepower. It was a fantastic. Pardon me.
What do you do for weight classes?
We started at 75, and then we go up to the high school weight classes. So they added 75, I think, a year ago. We started at 80 before, which was kind of the middle school weights for AAU duels, and a lot of those Rocky Mountain weights. But we only had probably 15 maybe in that bracket, or 16, in that smallest bracket. But the emotion you saw with those young kids, I talked, there's some schools that have a middle school wall that they put them up on, to place like you do in high school. So it turns into a goal. I talked to David Mashad from Pine Ridge, and his actually son was up at Regions this year, the fighter. So all the kids are like, hey, there's that guy, and they were all excited to see him. But, he said that he's got a wall in Pine Ridge and they supported it. So I don't know. We've got to kind of talk about how we can do it and keep, doing it better. I was always hoping we'd lose enough 8th graders and get enough 7th graders that would kind of level off. But we were up to 430 this year. So good news.
Very good news. You do have, you can't make it a 2-day. We got to figure out how to keep it a 1-day.
We talked about maybe, and our big influx this year was 7th graders. I think we had 40 or 50 more. And, I think a lot of those kids, frankly, wrestled as a 6th grader, and they were kind of the nail last year, and they wanted to be the hammer or part of the wood.
Yeah.
But, we may limit the 6th graders. I don't know. I hate to cap the weight classes because we had a few pigtails, and nobody wants to get beat out. And, of course, parents aren't used to prelims when they go to an AAU tournament. A lot of them freaked out because their kid wasn't in a bracket. Well, it was because they have to wrestle before they get in, and they didn't understand that. Well, and that happens at bigger tournaments, but until you go to one, it kind of makes you nervous,
Oh, yeah.
That's a good option to entertain, though, Tom, is only allow 7th and 8th graders. That might be.
I hate to do that to the 6th graders because, some of those lighter brackets might not get filled, but, maybe we've got a good reputation now that, that this is kind of that next step for that kid that's, here, coming up. And like I said, the support throughout the state has been very positive. We get high school officials. There was a lot of state refs there. They kind of get a taste of what it's going to be like full mat. The parents are kind of away and in the stands. And again, I can't thank everybody enough. It's the best thing I've ever been a part of. And other than, run the club like you do, Rob, at Westside. But, it's pretty special. My kid went up there this year, and I had no expectations. And he got in the semifinals and ran into an 8th grader. And it was kind of that semi-slide, but he wrestled his butt off to get there. Right. I was excited for him, and he was excited. That's a big deal for those kids.
It gives a good ending to the season for those middle schoolers.
Yeah, it does.
The workboards. Yeah. I talked with a little when you talked about the long day for the officials, because on the following day we had our Midwest Youth Duel tournament at Northern, and the 3 officials that officiated for our tournament officiated in Pierre, and all 3 were pretty sore.
Sure. I know, and we pay well. I mean, we want good guys there, but they're kind of in charge. I mean, they're running the tournament outside of, I sat with Bandcamp's dad. He ran the microphone, did a great job, talked to him all day. And, of course, Dustin Schoenhard. We had Nick down from 3 Times Gear. He ran the table, John. Nick.
Yep, very well.
They brought, I think they sold out of shirts by 12:30 for that. They didn't really, I mean, all those kids.
They know what to expect, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. In 2017, when Terman and I and Doug Wright and Konieczny and Donnelly and Andal and all these guys got together and started this, we kind of did it selfishly because Gabe was a 6th grader, Paul's kid. Mine was a 7th grader. And we're just like, let's just make this happen. Well, then I went to the state tournament with my son as a 7th grader, and I saw all these kids wearing state middle school sweatshirts. And I thought, you know what? We did it right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're proud.
That's what I mean. I mean, then you can kind of see that they were proud to wear that to a high school state tournament to let people know, hey, I'm going to be a wrestler someday too. And that was icing on the cake for me.
Well, what's interesting about it is there's this gap that happens in a lot of states where you have this elementary great program going, get through about 6th grade, and there's a gap that's lost between about 6th grade and freshman. It really is that it's actually no man's land because a lot of kids aren't making varsity. There's not a lot of a success scene. You can find a few freestyle tournaments, but that's later in the spring. And there's a gap during the year that, guess what, maybe I should play basketball, which is a sad thing to hear. But I think you're doing a great job. I think that's awesome.
It's like I said, I think it helps with retention. Rob hit it best. It's a tournament that these guys can look forward to at the end of the year that means something. And I think a lot of the emotion I saw there wasn't so much they were younger and just underdeveloped yet, but it was because they want a place there. It's a big deal. And, not all the brackets up top were full, but some of those kids can't go to an AAU tournament and get more than one match. And that's kind of why we started it too. Those 6th and 7th graders that may not be able to be in the room, for example, at Stevens, 7th graders can't wrestle JV unless they're, Chris Claprot, Jensen, some of those top guys, Voorhees, they don't have anything. And, for them to be able to go to a tournament like that and be in a bracket that big, other than going to Wild West or Denver, they're excited. They're never going to get
a lot of 32-man brackets. Some of those kids had a lot of wrestling. They earned it. I mean, they earned it.
I did. I think Owen Hansen's dad, his little son Judd, got into the bracket at 75, and I want to say I think he lost the first match 2-0, and the Graf kid that's the number 1 in the B's at 106, his son or his brother wrestled that kid, beat him 2-0, and then pinned out for that bracket. And that Hansen kid went all the way back and got 3rd, so he got 6 matches that day. So, I mean, you can't go to an AAU tournament and get 6 matches, for the most part, without going to a big tournament that's in a big city.
Well, that's awesome. I tell you what, I knew when North Dakota's was successful when I looked at the state bios, and there actually was a freshman that made the finals a couple years ago and said he was a middle school state champion.
Yeah.
And I knew that then Minot did the right thing. when they did theirs in North Dakota, and they just decided, guess what? We're just going to name it this because they wanted to get people there. There was no official state middle school tournament, and they said, guess what? We're going to make it, and just it's not even approved by the state. We're just going to name it this, and guess what? It took off, and it's been awesome.
We're not either, John. And there's some
Yep.
schools like in Aberdeen that puts this on their schedule, that supports it, that brings a bus. These kids travel like a high school team. Central would take a bus. Some of these coaches, and you see a lot of high school coaches, they're supporting it because they've got kids coming up, but they have to make the decision whether or not kid that can wrestle regions. And our activities association was nice enough to let these kids come wrestle there and still be in the practice room, so they didn't have to walk away from the program,
Right.
which is huge for us to allow some of those kids to come back and practice knowing they can't compete. I just got a text, now with the state duels, it might be tougher to do a JV state tournament, and what weekend do you pick it? The chatter out there, the state duels should be on Saturday or a week before or whatever. It's kind of the same thing. I don't know how you figure it out, but I'll be honest, from a retention perspective, and we even argued over what we should call the middle school state tournament. If we just call it the middle school championships, you call it the peer open, whatever you want to call it. And I think
kind of awards did you give away? Special awards, or did you give?
We got custom medals, and we medal them out to 8th, and we also give them a bracket, just like a high school tournament. So that's pretty cool. And my son was fortunate enough, his 8th grade year, he won the middle school state 100-pound bracket. So he was pretty excited about that. But for some of those kids, you never know. That might be the only bracket they ever get. And a big one. And it's not all the heavy cardboard, but it's close enough. And you still get a kid on that ward stand that maybe placed in the top 8, that maybe is an 8th grader that's 152 pounds, that's wrestling juniors and seniors all year. Right. He can walk away from that tournament with a smile on his face, knowing that I'm going to get better next year. I've got some things to work on, but I showed up here today and I wrestled kids that I'll never see. You're never going to see an Aberdeen kid out west. We don't have the same dual schedule. We finished in mid-December after the invite, so our middle school kids can get lost for us because we're not still wrestling through the regular wrestling season. So if they don't come to club, they're playing basketball or they're going to baseball. So it's tough. So I love seeing those kids walk out of there with a smile on their face. Parents are excited because they put the time in. We're rewarding those middle school kids, JV kids, for what they've done, and it's a tournament for them. And I hope it continues forever.
Awesome. Well, guys, I tell you what, we can wrap up this tonight. We went over an hour and a half. That's simple. That's how I love the sport, and you guys I know do too.
Yeah, but, we can talk. We can keep talking.
Yeah, I know. If you want to come on tomorrow night with the Class B too, I'll have a panel. I get a couple of people on. I know I have Scott. I got another coach in line. We'll see, but I'm trying to get somebody that just wants to talk wrestling. I'll do it anytime. Rob, you can invite back anytime. I love it.
Cool.
That's good. It wasn't hard to get on, was it?
No, it was easy.
It was really easy. Some people.
I was nervous. I didn't have to be, John.
Yep, it was that easy. Nope, great connection. Guys, keep promoting the sport. That's what it's about. Make these connections so kids have lifelong lessons that they learn all the way, all the time. Because guess what? I wouldn't have my life has changed because of wrestling. And I tell you what, I'm hoping that somebody has the same type of response with their life. And guys, state tournament week. See you tomorrow night. Those that want to watch, we're going to talk a little Class B wrestling tomorrow night. Guys, have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Thanks.